Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest mysteries and disappearance video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another one here. I thought I would mix another one while I'm wrapping up the Aliens and UFO series. And the reason I wanted to do this one as well is because there's a bit of updated news related to it. Even though this person has been disappeared now for over 17 years, here though, it goes to show that even as long as people don't give up, as long as they continue that search, eventually there will be a bit of updated news to bring some closure to it. And in this case, this bit of news just came out a couple days back, so quite a bit of coincidence when it comes to creating this series and then talking about these things, because again, as long as people don't give up, they will have some closure to it. So it has to do with this. It's known as the disappearance of Zebb Quinn. So let's go ahead, let's talk about all the information associated with this young man's outright disappearance. So who was Zebb Quinn? Well, he was a young man that was born in 1981, May 12th to be exact. Just your average young American man. He was living there in Asheville, North Carolina for most of his life. And as it happened to be on his 18th birthday, he was working at a Walmart located there also in Asheville, North Carolina. And on that fateful night of January 2nd, the year 2000, that's when he ended up disappearing. So again, about 17 so years ago when his disappearance was first noted, and I'll highlight a bit of news updated to that later on. But for starters, here's the history tied to that fateful night. So after he finished his evening shift there at Walmart, he got out at around 9 p.m. or so. This was again January 2nd, 2000. He was with a friend named Robert Jason Owens. This guy, I don't know if he was working there in the Walmart as well. It didn't seem like it, but I didn't see other news telling me otherwise. But the key point, they were meeting there at that Walmart parking lot because they were going to inspect a car that Zebb wanted to go see, some car that he was interested in buying. And for all intents and purposes, they were there at a gas station later on at 9:15, also meeting together there, purchasing some sodas, and then presumably going towards the car to purchase. It did seem like a little weird when I was reading the story, because who goes to purchase a car at 9:15 past that? In other words, at night. Normally these kind of things you would expect it to happen during the daytime, but who knows, maybe they were going to go to a dealership, that one of those things where you go to a dealership after it closes to inspect the car pretty much on your own and not be interrupted by anybody. Maybe it's something along those lines, who knows. But in any case, the rest of the story is from that friend Robert Jason Owens's own perspective, because anything else after that point is just hearsay. Nothing in terms of Zebb Quinn providing any other info because of his disappearance. So the way that Robert Jason Owens states, after they left the gas station, no sooner did he do so than his friend Zebb Quinn flashed his headlights, let him know, hey, wait a minute, before you leave I gotta tell you something. And then that's when Robert stated that Quinn had a page received, something from his aunt, no less. And the way it was listed on the pager, it was like frantic. Maybe he made a phone call. It seemed like at that time in the year 2000, everybody didn't have cell phones, so he had to go to a payphone, made a call, heard the information, and then told Robert Jason Owens that things were a little bit frantic and that he had to cancel their plans to look at the vehicle and then go off. In fact, things were so frantic that the way that this guy, Robert Jason Owens, stated, has his friend Zebb Quinn left off, apparently the last time he ever saw him alive, as he left off, he actually rear-ended his truck, this guy Owens' truck. So he left, and then that was it. That was the last thing he saw of Zebb Quinn. Again, this is all, take this in a grain of salt, because this is only coming from his perspective, and he becomes actually a main suspect later on. In fact, by sheer coincidence, Robert Jason Owens later showed up at a hospital. He had, in his case, some fractured ribs and then a big head injury. He stated that he actually was involved in a second car accident. that evening. So keep track of that in terms of pure coincidence. Not only was he rear-ended by his friend Zebb Quinn before he left off to disappear somewhere, but then later on he was also rear-ended yet again, in this case by another person. But by pure coincidence, there was no police report filed anywhere related to both incidences. Normally when you have something along those lines of a rear end, you generally have a cop pull over, so that way you can make sure that stuff is tracked, there's a police report, and then that way that stuff gets filed with the insurance company. But here, of course, in Robert Jason Owens' own account, making him innocent, or as innocent as can be, there was nothing in terms of any police report. But cut to the next morning, and when Zebb Quinn did not come back to his home, to his mother's home, then that's when they realized that he was gone. And so there was a police report filed by his mother to try to see what was happening. Everything seemed to point, though, to that man, that Robert Jason Owen, because there's a strange set of circumstances that happened afterward. Cut to a few days later, 2 days later to be exact, and that Walmart that Zebb Quinn worked at, they received a phone call, presumably from Zebb Quinn, except the person that answered it knew who Zebb Quinn was, didn't recognize the voice on the other line. Whoever this person was telling them in an impersonation of Zebb Quinn that they couldn't come in because they were sick. And so when that happened, they just simply took the information down, but they realized that something else was going on. Eventually, that phone call was in fact traced by some investigators. It was traced back to a Volvo plant where, lo and behold, that friend of his, Robert Jason Owens, worked. And then when he was confronted with this, he stated that he made the call, yes, impersonating his friend Zebb Quinn, yes, but he only did so because it was a favor, because his friend Zebb Quinn had told him to please call on his behalf, so that way he wouldn't get in trouble for him. Again, suspicious. It doesn't seem like a normal type of circumstance when it comes to that kind of stuff. Why would he have his friend do it when, in this case, Zebb Quinn could do it as well? And then also, where was Zebb Quinn at the time if he was calling him and he was presumed missing? Again, 2 days later, after the police report, after the missing report, person report was filed. So there were some more investigations happening. The police eventually interviewed a young girl that Zebb Quinn was going out with, but she was found to not have anything suspicious on her part, not even her boyfriend, who apparently the girlfriend was trying to get rid of and go out with Zebb Quinn, and there was some animosity between the two of them, but both of them were essentially just cleared with regards to that. And then as far as the pager and what happened, like in terms of the so-called frantic page notice that happened on that fateful night, they went to the aunt, and then she told that yes, I mean, it looks like it must have been her pager, but it wasn't her doing it, because her home, somebody actually robbed her home, but they only mysteriously took a couple of picture frames, and they took the pager as well. Nothing else that really stood out like you would normally expect, like money, jewelry, other valuable items, nothing along those lines. Instead, just the pager was gone. So whoever took it was in turn paging on that fateful night Zebb Quinn. Whoever that was, it still remains a mystery to this very day. Ultimately, though, Zebb Quinn's car was found at a place called Little Pig's Barbecue, and it was nearby a hospital where his mother worked, where Zebb Quinn's mother worked, the lady that, again, 2 days before was filing the missing person report. By this point, though, the car was found, 2 weeks afterwards. So the way it was found, though, was very, very mysterious. Someone had drawn a large pair of lips on the back car windshield. Like someone had purposely done that on the outside of the windshield. And get this, there was a live Labrador puppy that was found inside the car. Why puppy was there, who knows? Nobody could figure it out, but there it was within the car itself. And they found a hotel key card. Nothing as like in terms of notice of Zebb Quinn going to any hotel, so why would he have it there? But whenever the investigators tried to find out where this hotel key came from, unfortunately, and that would have been probably the biggest piece of evidence, nothing was able to be traced. They were not able to do anything in terms of tracing it back to where the hotel was from. Because imagine that would have been like the best key evidence, because presumably, let's say if it was found at some La Quinta or wherever, then that place would have had cameras, and it would have been so easy to have found the camera, found the hotel room, zoomed in on the parking lot, wherever, and then found where that person was, whoever did this. But unfortunately, no, nothing along those lines. Everything was searched for the car for forensic evidence. Nothing was found, nothing concrete at least, with regards to that, and then that was it. For the next decade plus or so, there was the idea that his friend of Zebb Quinn, in this case that guy Robert Jason Owens, since he was the last person that came across him, he had those mysterious injuries, that quote-unquote second car accident along with the first one from earlier, and then the impersonating of the phone call. Lots of strange stuff that tied into him, but nothing really like a smoking gun, nothing that could actually make sure that yes, that friend was the one that was the guilty party. So for the next decade plus, almost 2 decades in fact, it's been presumed that it was just him, but nothing in terms of an actual set a piece of evidence. So the family just had to go by that notion that everything remained a mysterious thing. Now, cut to about 15 years later, March 17, 2015, that same guy, that friend that everything is tied to, that Robert Jason Owens, he in turn gets arrested because there was a big scandal that happened back then in 2015. There was a Food Network star contestant named Christy Schwann, I hope I'm saying her last name correctly, and her husband. They were unfortunately found murdered within some cabin that they were staying at, and the way they were murdered was just horrific. They were basically dismembered. I think they were even burned, like not burned, but essentially placed into a fire so that way evidence could be squelched as much as possible. And she was also pregnant at the time too. And then with regards to who did this, it tied to that friend, that Robert Jason Owens. Everything was found to be to have him be the murderer. They were able to trace it back to him. He was undoubtedly the one that was convicted of this. In fact, he was eventually sentenced to, in this case earlier this year, a minimum of 59.5 years to 74.5 years in prison. So essentially no chance he'll be getting out alive, because there's no possibility of parole in his case. But how does this tie into the disappearance of Zebb Quinn? Well, whenever the investigators for that new murder, in this case that unfortunate murder of that contestant Christy Schwann, whenever they looked into the home of this guy, this friend, this so-called friend, this Robert Jason Owens, they found a curious piece of concrete where it normally should be. It should not be. It was almost like it was buried underneath a portion of the property, and then underneath the concrete there was other stuff. They were able to find some fabric, some leather, some quote-unquote hard fragments, almost like it was grounded up type stuff, like there was a white powdery substance. And it was presumed that doing this stuff like that, these are like human bones or grounded human bones, and they all could be tied to, in this case, the missing guy, this young boy Zebb Quinn. So with all that now new evidence into play, they were able to get the information, and they were able to now create a new indictment for this missing person. In this case, they indicted Owens with, and this was just a couple days back, July 10th, 2017, a first-degree murder of the death of Zebb Quinn. So it looks like there's going to be a whole new jury related to this, or a whole new case related to this, and it all because of the strange coincidence in this case of the other murder of that Food Network star, and the way that the police were able to get all this new material from the inspection of Owens's property. No word yet if they were able to do this beforehand, like early on, whenever the guy Zebb Quinn first disappeared. Presumably they would have gone to his home and looked around, but the way that this stuff was buried, I mean, it seemed like it would have just been almost impossible to find anything along those lines. But now, finding it and then seeing those fragments, those human bones presumably, along with ground up pieces of Quinn's body. Now it all seems to be going into place that yes, he was indeed the person that committed this murder. No word yet as to why whatever happened to Zebb Quinn that night, why it occurred. As far as all this information, it's all with that guy Robert Jason Owens. He hasn't revealed anything yet if he is indeed the person that caused the disappearance of Zebb Quinn. But who knows, as the stuff plays out in the future with regards to the new case, that'll be interesting to find out if he is able to give more information on that. So, but that's it. That's all the info tied to the disappearance of Zebb Quinn. As more stuff comes about, I'll see if I can start reporting on that too, because it goes to show again, as I mentioned at the beginning, all it takes is patience. I mean, who knew that after 15 plus years, in this case almost a little bit past year 17, that finally there would be some evidence tied to his disappearance, and this will help bring some closure with that family. So, alright everybody, thanks again as always, take care.